Welcome to Over and Out for Don News English. I'm Sadi Raza here in Dallas, Texas. With me is Ahmed Zulfikar in the UAE. We're going to review the Pakistan versus USA match today. What an amazing historic match. It was just up the road. I was there. I got there about 9. Fantastic crowd, fantastic stadium. The atmosphere was great. And I think the atmosphere was made better by the fans. They were okay with both teams' winnings. Obviously, there's a large Pakistani diaspora there, but they're also they live in the US, so it was there was lots of USA, and of course there's lots of Pakistan Zindabad. So in the end, a super over. I'll give you my thoughts initially. So I think the match was lost on both sides of the power play. I think Pakistan lost it in the batting power play. They ended the batting power play 30 for 3. They lost 3 wickets. It's okay if you lose 3 wickets in the power play as long as you keep up the run rate. Their problem was they lost 3 wickets and they got bogged down. The US, on the other hand, they went 44 for 1 in the power play, and they were very comfortable. And at no point, certainly in the first 12 to 13 overs of the US reply, did we in the stadium ever feel that they were under threat. The run rate was in control. They were taking singles and doubles, getting the odd boundaries. Pakistan looked a little listless in the field. They didn't look switched on. And I think, yes, it went to a power play, but the US deserved this victory. They dominated about 90% of the game. And the super over itself was a microcosm of the entire match. So you look at Amir gave up 7 runs just on wides in the super over. If you look at the way our approach in the batting, the way we fielded, it was just brainless at some point. You look at the final over, Rauf's over, there was some fielding decisions that were questionable, and then of course giving full tosses at the end. The US in the end needed 12 off 3, and they got 12 off 3, which is amazing in of itself. Malang Patel played a captain's inning. He was deservedly the man of the match, but it'll be interesting to see how Pakistan sort of bounce back from here. This cannot be anything but a demoralizing defeat for them. But the signs were there. I think their warm-up was suboptimal. And at the end of the day, they can't say that they weren't beat by a better team on the day. Your thoughts?
Absolutely, Sadiva, you've smashed the nail on the head there. It's easier to look at what Pakistan did right today rather than did wrong, because they made so many critical errors: poor power play, listless fielding, extras, catches dropped. Then in the power play, like you mentioned, the execution at the death there, some of the field placements from Babar Azam were mind-boggling to say the least. In the last over, fair enough, you took it to 15 off 6. But why have you kept the mid-off up for Haris Rauf, who's looking to bowl full, who's looking to hit the block hole? You were already saved when Shaheen Shah Afridi stopped a boundary. I wouldn't say that was a dropped catch. That was hit like a bullet from Aaron Jones. And he managed to get a hand on that.
Yep.
And you didn't learn from that. You still kept the mid-off in the circle. And Nitish Kumar, all he had to do, it was a low full toss, it was at high pace, but he just had to miss that fielder, and we went down to the super over. And like you mentioned, in the super over, Mohammad Amir had a complete meltdown. He just couldn't find his line and leg to the left-hander, who actually didn't face a legal delivery in the entire super over. It was all done by Aaron Jones. You only got hit for 1-4, but you got smashed for 18 runs. That was simply a meltdown of the highest order in Pakistan. Well, this is rock bottom. The only way to move from here is up, and let's hope they move up on Sunday. Otherwise, this World Cup campaign could be over before it even begins.
Yeah, I think Sunday becomes a knockout, basically, a match for them. You cannot afford to lose 2 matches out of 5. We talked about this in the preview, that you could potentially lose 1, but you can't lose 2. We assumed that you would beat the 3 minnows, but we saw just a few weeks ago this Ireland team can beat Pakistan. Moreover, that game is again on not on a flat track wicket. It's its own little tricky wicket in New York. It'll be on Tuesday, right after India. So it'll be interesting to see where the team goes from here. Specifically with the batting, let's talk about the batting. Did you have any issues with the lineup? It was Babar Rizwan to open. Saim was dropped. They kept Azam, who I thought was a little unlucky in the LBW decision, but he looks out of sorts. And there is a point, and we follow different sports as well, and you can see this in different sports. Sometimes there comes a time where you need to drop the player for the betterment of the player. And I think we might be at that point. I was watching him in the field. He clearly doesn't like not being a keeper. You could see him, they placed him strategically, but he just didn't have that effervescent, bubbly personality that you see in the PSL. He's not enjoying his cricket, and that's weighing on him, I think, like an anchor. Your thoughts?
Oh, absolutely. You've absolutely nailed it. The body language. I mean, the type of shot he tried to play first ball, that is not the Azam Khan we know. That's a player lost in his own mind, concerned about his own performance. And that body language is down. Even the shots of the dugout during the power play change of innings, Azam Khan was sitting right at the back in the shadows with a very grave expression on his face. He should have been the one batting out there in the middle with Fakhr Zaman, not Iftikhar. Naturally, he's our hard hitter of the ball. He's the one who can hit sixes from ball one, but he looks so mentally drained at the moment. You're absolutely spot on. We have to save him from his own good. And for Sunday, I think it's pretty obvious that Imad Wasim will slot into the side in case of Azam Khan, who looks mentally completely down in the doldrums. And like you mentioned, the signs were there for the Pakistan team. We haven't played good cricket in the last 3 months. We saw how we toiled against that New Zealand C team or B team, so to speak, during the IPL. We were completely torn apart in that brief England tour as well. And here, like you mentioned, the preparations were not up to scratch. They were denied match practice because of the rains and in Texas there. And they looked completely out of sorts. They looked like they were just coming out into the park after losing the toss. Mentally they looked deflated and they weren't switched on at all in the batting. And in the bowling, there was that lack of penetration in the power play. Manan Patel and Stephen Taylor for the most part managed them quite comfortably, and even though the pitch had eased up and that was in the favor of the USA, they just they didn't look like taking wickets at any stage of the game until that ripper from Rove to get through Andre Hughes.
We spoke about this, and I don't know, I spoke about it with you or with friends. I told someone that I thought after watching the US-Canada game that I thought Pakistan would be in trouble if they had to bat first against the US. I think our Pacers have they have a reputation, but I think that's based on past laurels. I think they've lost a little bit of pace. They've lost a little bit of confidence. I think Amir still has the guile to bowl well. Haris had pace today. Shaheen and Naseem were disappointing today. They didn't trouble the batters. They gave a few looseners, and you have to give the U.S. credit. They stuck to their tactics. They played out the balls that were easy to hit. They did. Otherwise, they were comfortable rotating the strike. It was, after the U.S.-Canada game, I thought if you correct for the time of day, I thought about 180 was sort of a par score. We were about 20 runs short. But I think the U.S. applied themselves knowing they only had to get around 8 runs and over. They didn't need to push themselves. But I think if they had to push themselves, they had that extra gear the entire time. And that's what the issue was with us. We just never looked like we had a grip on the game.
Absolutely. It was always just outside our grasp. We needed Shadab Khan to bowl a few penetrative overs. That never came about. They handled Haris Rauf relatively well. It was only that unbelievable delivery he bowled to Andre Hughes to get through the defense. That guy, based on his stats, has a strike rate of 190 versus left arm seam and versus right arm seam. And we saw those punchy drives that he played against Haris Rauf. He looked very comfortable. That flip off the hip against Naseem Shah as well over mid-wicket. He looked really comfortable. It showed that it was a good batting track. And Manan Patel, like you mentioned, anchored the innings well. It was just against the run of play that Pakistan even managed to take those wickets in that middle overs phase. Otherwise, it was USA's game to win right from ball one, right from the toss. In fact, they looked more switched on. They looked more positive. They looked more aggressive with their tactics as well. Their fielding was brilliant, to say the least. That catch from Stephen Taylor is going to be replayed again and again. And on the other hand, Pakistan, you saw the boundary riders, they were awful. Usman Khan, Iftikhar Ahmed were conceding that extra run whenever the USA wanted it, and we kept gifting them wides as well. So wherever we managed to create that gap between runs and balls, the extras compensated it. And then Pakistan making so many critical errors again and again. If it was a top tier side, if it was a test team, this would have been a rout, let alone a super over victory for the US.
I will tell you that when you're in the stadium, you can tell the difference in fielding quality very quickly. And you're absolutely right. The US team were on their heels. They were switched on. They were zipping around. our fielding looked lethargic. I wouldn't say sloppy. I think that's harsh. It just looked a little lethargic. I think we do need to look at who we place on the boundary, what their skill sets. It's not one of those, well, you're close to the boundary, you'll do. I think we really need to figure out some fielding analytics and figure out who has the skill set to be on the boundary. Because in fine margins now in T20, unlike an ODI where you have 50 overs where the cream can rise to the top, in T20 we've seen now literally any team can beat any team. And the think tank of the Pakistan team does need to be go back and do some homework about what they should do moving forward in this World Cup.
Well, the biggest dilemma is that, Sadi bhai, is that we have bad fielders. Usman Khan is below par. Fakhr is okay, but he doesn't have the legs that he used to in the past. He certainly had knee problems throughout his career. Azam Khan is a non-starter. Iftikhar is a non-starter. Even Babar Azam, the skipper, is a below par fielder now. He's really let himself go in that fielding department. So you're just carrying too many passengers. 4 of those are fast bowlers as well. We've seen how vulnerable they are to injuries as well. So your only proper or gun fielder is just Shadab Khan. Everybody else is below par or just a passenger in the side. So they're just too many holes that the Pakistan fielding side need to plug. Add to that extras, and it was always going to be an uphill climb to get back into this game. Even then, I feel the bowlers did really well to get us back into the forefront of the game. But then Haris Rauf, just bad tactics. Why are you looking to bowl full with the mid-off up? Why are you looking to bowl low full toss? Why are you going pace on in the first place? Learn from Mohammad Amir's penultimate over. He mixed it up beautifully. He used those cutters. He landed those Yorkers. That brought you back into the game. And we just made too many critical errors time and again. And over 40 overs, that does get exposed. In fact, over 42 overs, that got fully exposed.
Let's go back to a conversation we've had before. One of the issues in the power play is we don't have that X factor. You could see it. Yeah. We just didn't hit enough boundaries. And I think in the very first over of the game, Rizwan played about 3 to 4 dot balls. I think the second over of the game, again, Babar played a bunch of dot balls. Do we need to rethink Saim? Or is New York too soon for him because of the pitch? And maybe his role is further down the line in this World Cup.
Well, the ICC have registered an official media statement they've released that they said they've not been happy and they've registered the complaints about the Nassau Stadium pitch. So let's see what they can rectify over the next 2 or 3 days. I don't think there's much that can really be done, but I do feel it's too soon for Saim Ayub because if he comes into the playing 11, he will be considered a solution, so to speak, for this disaster class that we've had in Texas. So I think that puts that extra baggage on him that he doesn't really need. For the sake of Saim Ayub, I would let him skip that game. For the sake of Azam Khan, I would just let him ride the pine for now, get Imad Wasim back into the mix. I think the batting order is okay if they play to their potential. We know the issues we have with our intent. There's nothing that can be done right now, and we honestly never really had those options to replace them, apart from Mohammad Haris, who is wildly inconsistent himself. So Pakistan never really had any proper tangible solutions unless they went with a full anchor sort of batting lineup. They're making do with what they do have, and I think we just need a better performance on Sunday. Let's hope the toss goes our way, and let's hope the intensity level in particular is there versus India on Sunday in New York.
Toss will absolutely be key, but you're right. I would love to see the intensity. Today, Shadab didn't bowl the full allotment of 4 overs. He bowled 3 and Iftikhar bowled 1. Do you see Imad if he comes in bowling the full 4, or do you think him and Shadab split 2 and 2?
Well, that's a very good question. I think they will pick and choose when they use him. I think the 4 fast bowlers formula is not going to change. So I think it's a bit of a relief that we may not need all of Imad Wasim's 4 overs or all of Shadab Khan's 4 overs, because Shadab, his bowling form has been poor since before the ODI World Cup. So I don't know what's up with him. It always seems to be some niggle, some injury. I think it's just a lack of self-belief, a lack of confidence that Shadab doesn't believe that he's a wicket-taking bowler anymore. He's become a purely defensive bowler. Amir is a purely defensive bowler. Imad Wasim as well is the purely defensive bowler. And Shaheen Afridi is not the Shaheen we knew of 2021. We know there were big hopes of Naseem Shah, but he bowled a mixed bag of a spell in this game as well. So certainly we just need to hope that the toss goes away. We once again get a sporting wicket that we could exploit early on with India and put the Indian batting lineup under pressure, and just hope for a miracle in the run chase, because we know the way Jasprit Bumrah bowls in the later evening, it can be a big challenge. And of course, the spinners as well. I do expect Kuldeep Yadav to come back into the playing 11 for Team India as well, because he has that wood over us. Especially, he's very hard to pick for the likes of Babar Azam in particular. But before that, we need Canada to do us a favor and beat Ireland and keep them on the mat. And so we can just create that gap between wins and losses and hope that other results go our way. Who would have thought in a group of USA, Canada and Ireland, Pakistan will need other results to go their way?
That's why we play the game. We will, of course, do an India-Pakistan preview for our viewers at dawn.
I would say what we have done in service of cricket for cricket in the USA, I think no other team would have done. That just shows how big-hearted we are. If cricket doesn't take off after this game, I don't think it ever will.
So what's interesting is that ESPN, which is the main sports media platform in the US, hasn't really covered the World Cup thus far. But today, from its main account on Twitter, or X, it tweeted about Pakistan USA's upset over Pakistan.
Well done, PCB and Babar Azam. You certainly made a mark in North America, even if you didn't want to.
Thank you very much. We'll do it again soon.